Not long ago, I rolled the dice and bought a set of very inexpensive carbide burrs. I've torture tested these in steel, on hard welds, stainless, you name it. And I'd wager you can't even tell the ones I've used and the ones that are still new. This pole saw isn't what I want to talk about, but I've been stepping over and around it for the past week. And I'm starting to get the idea that if I don't clean it up and put it away, nobody will. I'm still sporting the Band-Aid, hiding my shame. Don't worry, I'm not going to show it to you. This thing isn't as bad as I was expecting. I ever tell you how I split this nail in the first place? I know everyone's noticed, but you've all been raised right and have never brought it up. Kudos. These two fingers found their way into a V-belt. By the time I realized what happened, my fingers had already gone all the way around the pulley. Split both of them right open like bananas. Blood all over my bullets and everything. Right then and there, surprisingly, it didn't really hurt. Managed to wrap them up nice and tight and drive myself to the hospital. But when they woke up, boy, they woke up screaming, I could tell you that. This thing didn't even need cleaning. Anyway, I'd built a big overpowered bench grinder, like two big 12-inch, 2-inch wide wheels. It was a sight to behold and completely unreasonable. It had its switch on the front. My smaller belt grinder at the time, that had a switch on the side. I could have just blown this thing out with some air. In a genius garage reorganization, I swapped their places. Grinder ended up going where the belt sander used to be and versa versa. One day, after finishing up grinding, I instinctually reached for the switch on the side, put my hand right into the belts. You know the story. I built the thing but hadn't gotten the guards on, and I never have. When I got back, or as soon as I could anyway, I broke that thing down in a fit of rage and scattered its parts to the four corners of the earth. I just hope some future civilization doesn't discover them and try to reassemble it. These days, I build the guards first and the machine later. Fool me once, right? Finger is healed up fine, but this middle finger ended up with like a crack in a nail, split right down the middle, stem to stern. It never really bothered me, it just kind of looked a little strange. In the fine tradition of adding insult to injury, an adjustable wrench took this finger the rest of the way home. The split nail is now getting a divorce, each half going its own separate ways. I'll be cloven hooved. I guess two things can happen now. Either a new normal nail pushes out, or I'm getting it surgically removed. In either case, I fear my YouTube career might be over. And if it's not the gross nail that does it, probably me having shared this story about it will. Have we ever talked about this pole saw? It's the Milwaukee telescoping one. I have a love-hate relationship with this thing. Performance-wise, this saw defies the laws of physics. I swear it has more power than my gas saw. Which you could take one of two ways, I guess. I don't know what black magic Milwaukee did, but this thing is just, it's unbelievable. You want to hear it? Give me a second to get to the trigger end. Okay, you ready? I'd show it to you in a cut, but I just cleaned the thing. The only problem with the saw is that it weighs a ton. You can't tell at first. You can't tell when you first buy it. You can't tell if you're well rested. But when this thing is out to like full extension, 13 something feet, 12, 13 feet, 14 feet, man, you can feel it. When I first got this, I was really worried about battery life. That's the thing to worry about, right? Turns out my arms fall off after 8 or 9 cuts. The battery's probably still at 100%, but I just can't pick it up anymore. I should also mention in good conscience, these things can be kind of dangerous. Maybe not the way you think. When you use these, you're supposed to stand at like a 45-degree angle away from the branch that you're cutting. In other words, like not under it. But you know what? You know what I found out? And what you will find out within moments of purchasing this thing and trying to use it? If you hold it straight up into the sky, you can reach higher branches. And guess where all the branches you want to trim will be? Combined standing right under that branch with a 10-inch ultra-sharp bar of seemingly infinite power, well, you just set yourself up for a Wile E. Coyote-style standoff with what is very likely a half-ton branch, if not more. Attention, everyone's attention, please. I have an announcement to make, an apology. Turns out my boy actually did clean the pole saw. I really thought there for a minute I was losing my mind, or the garage is haunted. Turns out he cleaned it up, just wasn't able to get both ends up into like the storage hooks up in the ceiling. I think I've got something in my eye. I'm still working on the grinding belts thing. Getting closer. Just a little teaser, I'd like to introduce you to my highly confidential, patent pending multi-belt. Or maybe Vari-Grind? No. Poly-Cut? The Time Shaver. I'm still working on the name. Stopping to change belts stinks. With this, you just stop the grinding on the grit you need. Zero fuss, but they still explode. I figured out why my party mix of Amazon grinding belts is so cheap. The backer just falls apart. I thought I had one here. I mean, maybe this just looks like a regular worn out grinding belt to you, but the edges, like the backer doesn't support like edge grinding maybe as well as a better belt. These were for some kind of knife sharpening machine. Was this even the one? This feels different. Yes, I think this one was this. Like I said, these were sold for some kind of knife sharpener. Maybe for that they work great, but the way I'm using them, I'm really relying on those edges. And they just break down faster than I expected. Still get reasonable grinding, I guess, given the price, but the edges break down so you no longer have that finesse that the edges provide. Still okay, maybe, I don't know. Probably won't be buying these again. The Gen 2 impact gun, 2-month review, phenomenal, absolutely loving it. Though this has quickly become one of the tools I'm most afraid of when I hear my kid using it. When I hear the hammer song coming out of this thing, floating out of the garage, I get chills down my spine. I can feel the stripped threads and snapped fasteners like a disturbance in the force. I don't know why, it's maybe the folly of youth, but he insists on running this on 3 all of the time. Around this house, under my roof, there is never any reason to use this thing on a setting other than 1. Maybe 2 sometimes with parental supervision, but I guess he figures if 2 is good, 3 must be better. By the way, we're talking about like bicycle seats and wheels, his skateboard trucks, anything you can think of that does not warrant an impact gun, that's what he likes to use it for. Anywho, the Gen 2 dedicated 1/4-inch drill burner upper. It's actually the die grinder, but it does an awesome job at spinning 1/4-inch drills way too fast. I mentioned some interest/doubt about this thing in the last video. One of the first comments I got was, "I love mine, it's great." Didn't have to hear that twice. As soon as I read that, dropped my phone, ran right out and bought one. It's no air grinder, but I've been more than pleasantly surprised. Not needing to fire up the air compressor or dealing with long, unwieldy air lines, this thing's turning out to be a winner in my book. Did I mention I was writing a book? Got this online, and while I was there, I added this set of carbide burrs to my basket. And these things have surprised me even more. If you're maybe not familiar with what these things do, allow me just a quick demonstration. Let's find something to destroy, shall we? Here's a piece of steel tubing, about that size. Actually, whole vise is moving on me. There you have it. It's a Dremel with some anger management issues. Heck, I don't think my milling machine could have done as nice a job. I'm not trying to sell you anything. Of course, that's what they all say, isn't it? We're just talking about cool stuff here. But if I won the lotto tomorrow, I might just consider buying a second one of these. I do a heck of a lot of switching between burrs, flap discs, wire wheels, which reminds me, it's good to keep tabs on your grinder speed. You wouldn't want to run a wire brush at the, I don't know, 15 or 20,000 RPM that this thing does at full bore. I was pushing buttons, but I don't know if I actually did anything. At number 4, top speed. Use your head, turn it down. Wire brushes, maybe if you're using the big like 3-inch flap discs, but you'll probably realize that pretty fast on your own. Now the same goes for hard tooling, of course. There's still feeds and speeds involved. The smaller it is, the faster you can go. In fact, the faster you run these, within reason, the cleaner they'll stay. Chips won't stick and clog as much if you have it running right. Now, here's what I usually run. I thought there was another one. The quote-unquote good stuff, the fine burrs for steel, the coarse burrs for aluminum. If you run a fine in aluminum, it'll clog in a heartbeat. And if you try to run a coarse in steel, well, your heartbeat might stop. The good ones start at $10 and up. Let's call it $15 average for the sizes you're looking at. Compare that to these, $30 for the whole set. If my wife's math is right, that's $3 each. So sure, they probably won't last as long as these. But back when I started, cheap carbide might last one job, one and done. And the good ones seem to last forever. Well, you know what I mean. But that said, these have been holding up better than expected, which, for a minute, got me wondering where they were made. These, by the way, are Smuckers or something, Swerker. I don't know if you can read that. No relation. They just had a lot of good reviews on the Amazon. Anyway, I Googled where they were made, and you know, I got quite the interesting response. Swerker burrs, I don't know if I'm saying that right, are manufactured using German and USA-made CNC machinery in China. I mean, that's certainly an interesting way to spin it. I guess try to get in as many of the words as possible. Which brings us to the heart of the issue. Full circle to the question you've been asking yourself this entire time. Is the Gen 2 grinder the best way to polish your work boots and leave that lasting impression on the job site? I'll be honest, I don't know. But there are two things I do know. First, my foot is cold. And second, this is the end of this video. Granted, I may have lost my way at some point making this video. I realize that now, sitting here holding my shoe. But hang in there, next video we'll be machining something pretty cool. I think anyway. A very easy, low-cost winch. And you know, if you don't manage to hang in there, and the build works, I should be in a position to pull you back up. For the 3 of you still here, I always appreciate the company, and thanks for watching.